Hi guys, welcome back. I am here with one half of the best comedy soccer podcast there is, Christian Polanco from Cooligans.
Thank you so much for joining me, Tom. This is I I love the intro, the best comedy soccer podcast that there is. Given that there's very little competition, I think when it comes to that very specific niche. But I'll take the crown if you're offering it to me.
Absolutely, yeah, no, and I'm confident of it as well. I'll argue anyone the point on this one. So good stuff. Anyone who doesn't know Cooligans, and I don't know who that would be because you are amazing and very popular actually on YouTube and on the podcast as well. Tell everyone a little bit about what Cooligans is.
Yes, the Cooligans is two stand-up comedians. I'm one of them. It's myself, Christian Polanco, and then Alexis Guerreros is my co-host. And we are both stand-up comics who started in the New York City comedy scene over 12, 13 years ago. And then in 2015, NYCFC became one of the expansion clubs in Major League Soccer. I'm from Brooklyn. Alexis is from Newark, New Jersey. He was living in Brooklyn at the time. We were doing the hustle and bustle of just doing stand-up comedy. But when the team started, he was like, hey, you can get season tickets. I'm going to get season tickets for NYCFC. And as soon as he said that, I'm like, I know. You don't have to tell me. I know I can't afford it because I'm a stand-up comic. I make almost no money. And then he's like, no, they're actually pretty affordable. And they were like a little under $300. So, and I was like, season tickets to any sport, even if it was, a U12 season, I didn't think I could afford it. And so we started going to games. Alexis was in a place where he was like, I want to do some kind of soccer content. And I was in the midst of trying to write for television. I was like submitting for late night chat shows. I was submitting for SNL. I was trying to, be a writer and do stand up, and that's a common career path. And then he's like, "Oh, I want to do some soccer content." I'm like, "Well, I'm already like working on kind of like variety shows." I was doing stuff of like producing content, comedy sketches and writing and stuff like that. So I was like, "Oh, I could just do that for soccer." And we just started kind of filming some stuff like Man on the Street, after post game, like Arsenal Fan TV. We didn't know what we were doing exactly. We were just like, let's just do something, and then to get this started. Then we started. So we filming YouTube content. Then we filmed. Then we did a podcast, and it started with like just NYCFC fans listening. Then it just grew and grew and grew, and then all of a sudden, people on the other side of the country are like, "Oh, I love you guys!" Like Portland Timbers fans and Sounders fans are like, "Oh, I'm really into this." So it kind of blew up in a way I never really expected.
It's fantastic. Yeah, no, it's really general as well. You do stuff about the Premier League as well as MLS. It's very broad and varied, isn't it?
Yeah. It's become, we've gone through all these sort of iterations of trying to find what our audience appreciates the most. And, sometimes we have fans that are like, stop talking about Premier League. I hate Premier League. I only listen, I only watch MLS. And it's like, we kind of found the compromise of doing both and finding just the funniest, not necessarily, it's not solely like what's the funniest thing to talk about. It's literally like we are so deeply connected and immersed in the game that it is a show for football fans to be able to, it feels like an inside joke. This is just for people who are really connected to the game and watch it regularly. And even if you don't watch it regularly, you can still connect to the characters and stuff like that. Like, it's really become about expressing the stories and humorous side of the game without being like, attacking anybody or being mean to anybody. It's like a really and trying to uplift, but really talk about soccer in a way, especially in the United States, where no other sports outlet really talks about it. There's no comedians really talking about it. Here in the US, we deal with like, oh, you like soccer? That's gay. And it's like we've had to deal with that for 30 years. And it's like, I'm sure, fine if it's gay. That's great. Who cares? That's been our MO of just like normalizing talking about the sport.
Yeah, absolutely, and it is very, very accessible. You don't need to know about soccer. You don't. It's not going to be chat about where Telles Magno might play best. Amongst the team. It's very, very general, and it's fun. Like I say, you guys are comedians. You make it fun to watch, even if you don't know about about the sports, about the intricacies. It's just a great watch.
Thank you. That means a lot. I mean, that's we put in a lot of effort into making it, the show easily accessible and fun. I mean, we've had guests from, GMs of Nashville SC to, the singer songwriter Becky G. Right? Like we've had it's like the show is really, really for everybody, but the foundation of it is always soccer, which is always like the thing that unites us all.
That's awesome. Nashville FC to Becky G. This is the new tagline for you, I think.
Okay. All right. You know what? You are our new marketing director, Tom.
The gig I've been waiting. It's great. The production's really, really good as well. You're crystal clear. It's lit really nicely as well. You got. Well, where do you do it? Is it in someone's house?
No. That is in. We just got a studio last year.
Right. I was gonna say that's a huge house if someone's got that room.
It is. I mean, we're in like the garment district in New York, so it's really, it was like an old fashion. I guess they were either designing clothes or something like that in that space before we were there, and it's probably not the most suitable for like a television program, but we made it work. It's we don't have all the money in the world. A lot of the work we did kind of ourselves, but we especially when we first got there, laid down the carpet, kind of the set now that you see is actually the cool thing. We joined a network called Meadowlark Media, which is kind of the people who created it were kind of former ESPN people. And they've ever since joining them, the resources and the support we've gotten have been immense. So that's been it's a great situation for us, because like the podcast started in Alexis's kitchen in Upper Manhattan.
Nice.
and then we went from there to like a radio station that another comedian friend of ours was working at. He was like, "Hey, we're starting this podcast network, and you want to use this studio and stuff like that." And we were at this radio station for a little bit, and then we were on Fubo TV. So that became the first time it became like our jobs, and we could. Alexis was doing pizza tours while when we started the podcast, and I was doing freelance IT work, kind of running around the city, just fixing computers for a bunch of different clients. And that was like kind of the beginning of like this could be a real thing. This could be a real career. And after we left Fubo TV and joined Meadowlark Media, it's been a great situation where we have kind of the autonomy of like what we want to do. We don't have people telling us, "Hey, do this, you can't do that." So that's but we also get the resources and support that we would have like at like a big television network to some degree. So that's why the show looks as good as it does. I mean, I'm kind of a tech nerd as well, and I've done everything I can to like with the least amount of money possible make it look as good as it really, really can.
Fantastic. Yeah, no, it shows. It does look like a very, very professional setup. One thing I must know, what is a pizza tour?
A pizza tour is kind of exactly what it sounds like. It is you being taken to different pizza spots all over New York City and getting the pizza sort of explained to you, how it's made, the history of it. I don't know if you got a chance to see Alexis is on CBS's Morning Footy, and he did a pizza breakdown of Messi's Pizza. I don't know if you saw that. When
yes, with all the tomatoes on it. Yeah.
So he did a breakdown of it, which I'll send you the link if you haven't seen it.
I would love to see that. Yeah, please.
And once you watch that 7-minute segment, you will never ask that question you just asked again. you would be like, okay, right. I completely understand about pizza and why this man knows so much about it, as he's done hundreds and hundreds of pizza tours. So yeah.
Sounds amazing. I've never heard of such a thing. I really want to go on a pizza tour now. That's on the list.
Yeah, you have to.
Fantastic. I'm going to get him to do it as well now.
All right. Might be a little pricier this time, but very well.
I keep saying I'm going to try and come over for the World Cup, so I'm going to be around that time. So I'll book it early.
Okay. All right. Good. It's just 3 years out, but we put it on the calendar. We'll pencil it in, Tom.
Yeah, I like that. I like that. I'm going to get eating some pizza and practice. So how did you get started in soccer? Have you always loved it since you were a kid, or is it a more recent thing?
I grew up. So my family's from the Dominican Republic, which is not a footballing nation by any means. It produces baseball players, some of the most elite baseball players, and that is, there's a fairly large percentage of Dominican players that play in Major League Baseball. But I used to play a little bit. My brother is played handball professionally. Handball, not Olympic handball, which is sort of like soccer but with your hand. It is it's sort of like squash, like playing squash.
Oh yeah, yeah.
But with your hands. So we have in New York, we have big giant walls in all of our city parks, and that's where the game was played. The game was originally brought by the Irish when they emigrated to New York. So that's what I grew up playing. And later on, I started playing the FIFA video games. And boom, that's where I was introduced to the game. It's players. I love video games. So I was just like, all right, I'm good at this game. And I ended up consuming a lot of knowledge about the sport. And then I worked at a GameStop. I think you guys have GameStop, right?
Yeah. We have very similar stuff. Yeah. It's right. Well known.
So I worked at a GameStop, and my coworkers were all soccer fans. Worked with Colombian guy who is like one of my best friends, and he would bring me to matches. The first match I ever went to was Roma against Real Madrid in a friendly at Giant Stadium. So
what a game!
So I got to see Gabriel Batistuta. I got to see Roberto Carlos, Figo, Zidane. So all these unbelievable players. Wow. And that was the first match I ever attended, and it was incredible. And it was I think it was a 0-0 draw, so that was a kind of a bummer. I didn't get to see a goal, but I started from there on. I just kept going to matches. I never grew up playing, so that's the interesting part. I definitely played FIFA, and then but then I started playing actually as an adult, and I've been playing regularly, like in a Sunday league, for maybe the last 10 years. And I went from just not even being able to juggle, do literally anything, and now I can do around the world. And I used the pandemic to work on my juggling skills. During lockdown and stuff like that. So yeah, that's basically it. I kind of was just a very casual fan, and now I don't go a day without consuming immense amount of football in my life.
That's fantastic. Yeah, what a great start to things. Actually, that's really nice. Coming to it late, but then you're still doing it now on a regular basis. So what are you playing aside there? Is it like a 7-a-side, 9-a-side?
7-a-side, co-ed. I've been nutmegged and Cruyff turned by some of the most incredible female footballers there are. I've been humbled very, very quickly, but it's been great. I play in this league called NYC Footy, and it's just a awesome community. And it's crazy how when I started, they played on one field. Brooklyn Bridge Park. I don't know if you've ever seen the images of those fields by the water, a dock. So I play there every week.
Beautiful.
And that league has gone from that field to, maybe 30 other fields around the city. The community is tremendous. I've worked with them in a lot of different aspects, and it's just really cool. They even do this weekend. Actually, they have this thing called Footy Fest, which is they do a football tournament in upstate New York, in the Catskills, and it's just very kind of rural area. They get this giant patch of grass, and they host maybe 6 or 7 matches at a time. They have this big tournament, and it's more like a community getaway based around soccer. Wow. And it's so it's awesome. Yeah. So I think that's been one of my favorite things about not just watching games and learning about the game, even working in the field and working in the industry. It's the community is, especially in the United States, it's there aren't many of us compared to like the NFL and stuff like that. But the community behind it is just so much stronger, I feel, than other sports. That that's you. I've made friends in the supporter section at Yankee Stadium that I will be friends with for the rest of my life. So that is kind of, means a lot to me.
That's great. I've seen some evidence of those groups coming together in the tailgates and stuff, and the sort of traditions they go through together, and they're drinking and they're eating together and stuff. It just seems wonderful.
Yeah, there's I've gone to England and been to Manchester and London and Liverpool, and I think the thing we tend to envy is you guys have just so much history around your leagues that it's just you're born into it, and everybody already knows all the information. They know the famous players. They just pass it on, and we don't have that. We have to intentionally look for that information, or somebody has to intentionally pass it on to us and give us a reason to care, because there's so much competition for your attention when it comes to sport, that you have so many other choices, and it's difficult to, if you're a kid in like primary school, and nobody's really talking about soccer, at least when I grew up, and that's kind of changing. You're seeing little kids wearing either MLS jerseys or Premier League. We see a lot of Chelsea, Liverpool, Manchester United all over. So kids are growing up with the game in a different way. It's much more accessible to them than when we were kids. So so that's the part of it that I'm just trying to make. Again, that's what I think the Cooligans is. It's just like making it part of just the ethos. It's fine to talk about it, and these shows like ours need to exist.
Absolutely. You're taking it kind of in the mainstream, making it accessible for people. If they've got a slight interest, they'll watch, they enjoy it, they're more into it. That's great.
Totally. Yeah. It's working out. I sometimes I can't believe it worked out, but it's working out.
Well, I think more people should get to know it, because I mean, just look at the season we're currently in. We're coming right to the end of it. So we're recording this at the start of October. By the time it comes out, I think we'll be pretty much over, to be honest. It'll be a couple of weeks before this goes. So I think that we've just seen St. Louis do something astounding as an expansion team. You don't get that in other leagues. I mean, this is why MLS is so special, I think.
Without a doubt, yeah. And it's St. Louis is fascinating because a couple years ago, this is in 2019, I believe, I went to Germany. I got an invitation from Bundesliga to basically go. They do like these media trips where they just like introduce Bundesliga to people that they hope like talk about it more and be a little bit more knowledgeable. So I went to Dusseldorf and did a like kind of Q&A in this like a press room type thing with Lutz Pfannenstiel, who is the sporting director for St. Louis City. So he was one of the first people hired to build that squad. And so after meeting him in a few years ago, and then when I heard he's going to go to St. Louis, and he's a fascinating person, and this is someone you should look into and profile. He has the record, I believe, for he played in every single FIFA confederation.
Oh wow!
He played in all of them, and he did something. What was it? I think he played in South Africa, if I'm not mistaken, and he protested something. I forgot exactly what it was, but he was arrested, and he was in prison for a year. It's so surreal. And he played all. He was on the coaching staff of the Cuban national team as well. He's had one of the most unbelievable lives in the world, and he is the sporting director for St. Louis. So when I found out he was going to be the guy, I'm like, this team is not going to be bad. I knew that. Right now, we've been seeing a lot of after St. Louis won the Western Conference. Yeah. Everybody, a lot of the players are like, hey, we have a list up in the locker room that says where all the MLS pundits thought we were going to finish. Everybody said 13th or 14th, and all the people that you see on MLS season pass, no one said higher than 13th. Yeah. So they all, it's like the Jordan meme, like, and I took that personally, right? So So this season, I think in particular, given it the first season on Apple TV, I personally think this is the best season MLS has ever had. I mean, as far as yes, it's like a bummer that it's like behind a paywall, but in the paywall, we're having a good time, right? We're like this. It's very entertaining. The coverage is great. I love MLS 360. I love the fact that there's a wrap up show every week. There's just a real dedication to covering the league like a proper league, and this is even before Messi arrived. So this is we've been doing this in 2015, and when NYCFC and Orlando City joined the league, it did feel like a bit of a turning point. And then when Atlanta United joined the league, that's when it felt like, wow, this is huge. This could be like a real thing, right? So yeah, I've been loving this season. The last couple of years, I'm an NYCFC fan, and getting to be in Portland when we won MLS Cup and just
21, right?
In 2021, yeah, it's just like it's given me just great moments and experiences. So yeah, we're just and it's exciting. We get to look forward to the World Cup because the hope is that this just continues to grow and grow.
Absolutely. I think this is we're on a turning point here where it's just going to go and go and go. I think we're going to get one or two more expansion teams, but I think what we've got at the moment is so it's so vast. It's so sort of diverse as well. So they're looking into all the different teams. This is why I've seen sort of coming into it. I've only been into it sort of a year, 18 months. It's looking in from the outside in. There are identities in these different teams. They are very, very different. They don't seem like new entities. They feel like they've got a history. They've got real identities, and there's characteristics to each one, and it's really fascinating.
Yeah, there's an interesting, this happens all the time. Whenever there's an expansion team, we're like, oh, what's the support gonna be like? And same thing when I went to Austin. I was there for their inaugural game,
oh, wow.
and I was just like, this is crazy. This is like they just took the Arsenal supporter section and put it in Austin. Where it and it looks very what's the word, like you said, like it feels like there's already history, and a lot of times there is. And a lot of those cities, they either had clubs in lower leagues, or maybe they had like an NASL team where Pele came through and sort of changed the dynamic of how what people thought of the sport at the time, 30, 40 years ago. But the thing I see directly, especially whether it's the New England Revolution or a new team like Nashville or Austin, is that there's just so many deliberate choices and people that are like, okay, we have to start a supporter section. This is how you paint the tifos. This is how you do the things. Like somebody has to go in and say like, hey, I support a team in Liga MX, and this is how we do it there. So let's bring some of that culture into this MLS team. And this is why MLS supporters, you mentioned diversity. There's a lot of diversity in not just in culture or what people look like. There's a lot of diversity in their football fandom, right? Yeah, NYCFC has people who sort of do the chants like at Chelsea and at Arsenal, where they try to come up with like humorous chants, and then there's people that are from Argentina or just in South America that have the more songs and try to deliver like it in a more passionate way. And these supporters have to come together to find some compromise of like, how do we support our MLS club, given that we kind of all do it a different way, but let's find something that it's like a happy medium.
Absolutely. I think that's how these things grow, isn't it? It's organically through the fans or through the experiences they have together. And that's, like Man City adopting the Poznan sitting in the celebration to do it with the crowd, because, that's the team they played and they got it. It's nice. You collect these things along the way and it becomes part of your history, which is also kind of shared with somebody else as well. It's got a link back somewhere else. It's beautiful.
Without a doubt. Yeah. Like every team is finding sort of its own identity. I love Philadelphia Union. When they score a goal, they go doop 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 doop, and they do the whole song and stuff like that. And doop is now kind of just part of the whole kind of marketing plan, and everybody, it's their hash flag on Twitter as well.
Yeah.
Like that. So I genuinely enjoy, going to different cities and it's like I've gone to Premier League matches, and there isn't, outside of people's accents, there isn't too much of a difference in how people sort of support their club. I mean, I'm an Everton fan, so it's usually just misery in the stands. A little different.
At the moment, it's not great time, is it? Yeah.
So that part of it is awesome. This is why it makes MLS unique in its own way, and I think that's why is intriguing to people like you that might be in the UK.
Absolutely, yeah. And I'm a big shirts fan as well. So I was admiring your 2017, I think you said it was.
Thank
NYC
you.
shirt. I absolutely love that one. And I'm a big shirts fan. I like the culture, I like the stories behind the teams as well. It all comes together. I think it's just a brilliant thing. And then I think the MLS is getting it absolutely nailed on right at the moment.
Yeah, I like the level of I think we should, I think that's what we try to bring, is a little bit of confidence in supporting the league and supporting the sport. I mean, a lot of people, even Americans, can't stand MLS because we don't have promotion relegation. We're not a real league and blah, blah, blah. And I'm sure you, perusing through Twitter, have already sort of experienced this from time to time. There's a lot of infighting when it comes to this. And, in general, I don't think anybody, MLS is a strange league in the sense that people kind of have to support the league itself to support the sport. Where in Premier League, nobody likes the Premier League. Like nobody knows who the president of the Premier League is. Like really, like we know, like Don Garber is a front-facing person that has to represent the league, but he's also representing the sport at the same time. So that's where it makes it a little bit different. Where I have my issues with Major League Soccer. I know players that have their issues with Major League Soccer, but when I've interviewed so many people that were involved in building MLS from in its infancy, and when you hear them talk about the people who are frustrated with the league, they're like, "This is as good as it gets. We tried other things and they failed, and the failure, there is a real trauma with the older kind of people in American soccer, that they've gone through the failure of leagues, men's leagues, women's league. The women's leagues even worse. We've had about 3 collapses of leagues. So it's a thing. Even though we don't have promotion relegation, we have stability, which we didn't have in the past. And it's MLS in 2001, when we had 2 teams that were contracted, the Tampa Bay Mutiny and the Miami Fusion. That was, the league was going to fold. It took several people to basically, the Hunt family, who owns FC Dallas, to say, hey, we believe in this, and we're going to put in our money. They bought 3 teams, and they just tried to keep the league propped up for as long as it could to get to this point. So that's kind of the thing I take into consideration, that there are people that really did a lot of work to get American soccer to where it currently is. And it's not perfect, but it is so much better than what we had in the past.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it seems from the history that I've looked at, this is the try where it worked. This is the one where they really hit it out of the park and actually, yes, ride this now, because it's really going to work. And I think, I said it before. Actually, my previous video that would been just released is with Gavincio. I don't know, it's been on your show.
Yeah.
Your episode with him was so good. I watched that today.
Oh, he's
I
great.
really enjoyed that. And I said to him, I personally coming from a league where has, from a country which has pro rel as the norm everywhere. It is something that I think, stick the National League underneath MLS, and you have a wonderful system. But the fact that you don't have it doesn't take away from anything. It makes it unique, and I think there is all it's just something else that is different. And I don't think you need to necessarily conform to what other leagues are doing to be an entertaining and successful league.
Without a doubt, I think in the long run, I think we need it. but not to necessarily survive. But I think we're going to hit a ceiling that we just, leagues need to do something to grasp the attention of viewers, because the competition gets fierce. And I think the risk of your team getting relegated, it's like having a gambling problem. It is just like, oh, I could lose it all. I gotta play, right?
It's terrifying when you're down there. As a Leeds fan, it happened to us last season. It nearly happened the season before, and you're like,
right.
No, it happens, and it's part of your journey, though.
Exactly. So that, I think that part of it is, I think we need it at some point, but I guess we think about promotion relegation in just the club form, but then when I've interviewed over like 100 players already, and they're fighting for their own promotion and relegation in their own individual careers, right? They don't want to lose and end up, you might get relegated out of the sport, and you may not be able to play anywhere, or you might have to play, take a huge pay cut playing in a lower league. It's not like there's no risk. I remember, I don't know if you know the name Dwayne De Rosario. He's like one of these MLS legends. He played for Canada, and he played for a couple MLS teams, DC United, a couple clubs. And he, I remember there's a journalist for The Athletic, a friend, Pablo Maurer, at MLSist, who I always recommend people follow, and he was telling us a story about interviewing Dwayne De Rosario one time after a game, and he said, it was like towards the end of the season, DC United are out of the playoffs, nothing really at stake for the club, and he said, and he asked them, like, hey, given it's the end of the season, these games don't really matter much anymore. How do you like get fired up for these? And he got personally insulted. He's like, these games do matter. These games are important. These games, determine whether players are coming back or not, or getting a new contract and things like that. So it isn't that simple of just like, oh, because there's no relegation, there's nothing to lose. And it couldn't be further from the truth. And we do have teams that don't invest as much as others, don't take it as seriously. I mean, the Colorado Rapids are it's remarkable how bad they are and how little investment they get. But we're seeing, because other teams have so much investment, fans of the Colorado Rapids are like, why we can't live in the early 2000s. We have to take this club seriously. We have to invest in players. So that part of it is kind of exciting, of just being a part of that. Like, we're allowed to have confidence. We're allowed to like or be passionate about our teams. We're allowed to be upset when they're not performing well, because we know we'll be in the league next season, but that doesn't mean we want to be in the situation.
Absolutely. Yeah. Nobody wants to be bottom of that league. Nobody wants to be, down there where the relegation spots would be. It's not a nice thing to do.
Right. And you get awarded the wooden spoon. Do you know about the wooden spoon? Good. Yeah. So that's it's like, I didn't learn about the wooden spoon until like a year after we were doing the show. We were sort of joking around about like, oh, if the winner of the Supporters Shield gets the shield, what does the worst team get? And we kind of were trying to come up with like a funny thing, and we're like, oh, it already exists. It's called a wooden spoon that they literally pass around to the worst team, and the supporters of that team have to hold it until the next season, the end of the next season, to award it to somebody else.
I don't think it has. I don't think it's a thing. It's a thing for everything. If you come last in a race, you get a wooden spoon over here and everything. But it's not that fun, is it? Anyway, let's move on from that. Sure. NYC. So you've been supporting them since the beginning?
Yes, in 2015. Yeah, I was one of the first season ticket holders. I might have been probably one of the first like 200 people to get season tickets. And I always say, like, deciding NYCFC legitimately changed the trajectory of my life. I mean, there's no other way to put it. I, just from supporting the club and friends and meeting so many people to starting Cooligans. I always tell people Cooligans would not exist if NYCFC didn't exist. And it's been an incredible ride from just going to games, and then doing the podcast, occasionally having players on the show. And then for the last 4 years, we've worked with the club in a lot of different capacities, whether it's like kind of filming content, interviewing players. We did a lot of stuff during the pandemic when everybody was home and then there was nothing to do. So we kind of try to, make the players feel a lot more relatable and people get to see them in a different light. Just the other weekend, for the Inter Miami game, I was one of the hosts. They did like a watch party at this like kind of concert space in New York, and that was it was fun up until we gave up the goal in the 93rd minute after there was 7 minutes of stoppage time, which is you guys have Fergie time. We got Messi time, bro. This is crazy. 7 minutes.
Cooler.
7 minutes is unheard of. That did not require 7 minutes, but it's been an unbelievable ride. So I mean, and getting an MLS Cup to I'll show you this.
What's this gonna be? I'm intrigued. Is it a puppy?
My NYCFC MLS Cup championship ring.
What?
Has my name on it right there. You can kind of see it. I could change let me change the focus a little bit. Let me see if we can see that clearly.
Crazy.
You see that? Wait,
it's not focusing quite. Oh, nearly.
Yeah, there it is.
Wow. That's insane. How did you get that?
So the club gave it to me.
What?
So after MLS Cup, we were there, and we were working with the club a lot that year, filming a bunch of content and stuff like that. So they gave kind of everyone on the staff a ring, and they said, "Hey, you guys are part of the journey," and they gave us one as well. So
that's so cool. What nice guys. That's a really thoughtful thing to do.
It was quite an honor, yeah. So it's pretty awesome. One of my proudest kind of objects that I have.
Absolutely, yeah, rightly so. What a fantastic thing to get. So, who have been your favorite players over the years? You've had some amazing. You've had Pirlo over there. You've had Lampard over there.
Favorite player. So this is it is. I've had a few, and we've had legendary players, Pirlo, Lampard, Villa, or whatever. But I think I have a lot of appreciation for the players that kind of lesser known players and just players that sort of have become legends within the club. So, I mean, one of the few is Jack Harrison, who played at Leeds. So Jack got drafted. He got initially drafted
Everton as well. He's following you, really.
I was losing my mind when he went to Everton. Jack got drafted by the Chicago Fire, and NYCFC at the MLS Super Draft just picked him. They did a trade with the Fire and ended up taking him, and it worked out so well. And Jack is just and it's just so great to see. We saw the talent when he was at NYCFC, and then he ended up going to Middlesbrough, then Leeds, and it just like worked out so well. When he's when the Premier League returned, and he scored Leeds' first goal in the Premier League in like 14 years or 12 years or something like that. That was against Liverpool. I couldn't have been any prouder of that. That was just such a cool thing. And and he's been fitting in well. I know he's kind of been coming back from an injury, but I know he's going to do well at Everton too. Him, Maxime Chanel is also a really, really important player who just left and went back to a club in Luxembourg. But he's up there as well. Really, really just also both really, really great people, and just like kind of always stewards of the club and always representing the club like really, really well. So I mean, those are the first two definitely that come to mind.
Fantastic. So they must really make an impression on you. So on the individual front then, who's your favorite person who you've interviewed from NYCFC or in general?
Let's
go in general. I mean, there's not necessarily famous. Not necessarily favorite, because that might be different emotions.
Yeah. I always say like so one of the players on the U.S. Women's National Team, her name is Ali Krieger. She's a fullback, and she currently plays for Gotham FC. But That interview that we did is, I'm sure it might be similar in England, especially with the England women's national team.
Yeah.
But the U.S. women's national team, I mean, it is like the fans of the U.S. women's national team might as well be like Swifties, right? Like Taylor Swift, like they love them to a degree. When we interviewed Ali Krieger, and we just posted a photo like, oh, we interviewed Ali Krieger coming soon, and then the next 12 days, we were getting messages like, when is the Ali Krieger interview coming out? It's like 13-year-old girls. I'm like, why do you okay? You listen to a soccer, you want to listen to us? Okay, I was very, very shocked. So she's definitely like the main thing for us is like we try to find kind of the funniest personalities and funniest players, and Ali Krieger is like one of these people that is, if I didn't know she was a footballer, I'd be like, oh, this is a comedian, this is an actress, or somebody just like great comedic chops. So that it's always high up there on just one of my favorites. I mean, there's too many to go through, but like Megan Rapinoe is also she's just an absolute superstar and always a great interview. One of my favorite moments happened last year at MLS All-Star is, especially for us, we went from when you're a comedian at like a press conference, like we've been to an MLS press conference where Don Garber is speaking and we ask a question and we try to like have a little fun with it. And literally like one of the higher ups at MLS afterwards came up to us and he was like, why are you here? Like, what are you doing here? Why are you doing this? Like, you're not journalists, so maybe this isn't like, he wasn't even like upset with us. He was just more like, maybe there's a different outlet that we can find time for you to interview people and by yourself and maybe do something different as opposed to interrupt the other journalists and take a question and stuff like that. So we last year at MLS All-Star, and MLS has been really, really great with us. And they give us time basically during the after training and all the players are doing interviews and stuff like that, instead of having us in the scrum with a bunch of other journalists trying to get a question in, they give us time in our own section, like a little bit away from the other journalists, and they say like, okay, we'll send the players to you and we'll give you like 10-15 minutes with them. And we were interviewing Chicharito, just a legend, and I'm like such a huge fan of him, and it was great to talk to him. And while we're interviewing him, Carlos Vela comes in to like jump into the interview, and we're just like, what? He's like joking around, having a good time, and they're both being super, like a lot of banter, super playful, and it was such a surreal moment of just like, and as soon as we're talking to Chicharito and there's like a couple photographers there taking photos as we're doing the interview, and then when Carlos Vela comes in, and then they're both laughing, and we have these unbelievable photos of all of us laughing along with Chicharito and Carlos Vela. Man. It was, I mean, I look at the photos and I get like emotional. I'm like, where has my life gone that I can like joke around with these two Mexican superstars and just have a good time with it. So those moments like that, I think are things that only the Cooligans can make those things happen. And so those are like some of my favorite moments and things that proud interviews that we've gotten to do.
Absolutely. I can't think of anybody else who would have that access and be able to talk to those guys in that situation. That's amazing. What have you created?
Yeah, it's worked out. It's crazy.
So who's your favorite on the team right now?
On NYCFC, right? It's, oh man, this is tough because we're having a horrible year. Favorite on
you're just outside playoffs, aren't you?
Yeah. I mean, look, it has to be Santi Rodriguez. He's our best player right now. He's wearing the number 10 shirt. I think he had a weird start to the season because he was a player that was on loan, and then I think we weren't sure if he was going to get re-signed. He got back to the team after the season started, so he didn't really have a preseason. We've had lots of players come and go. I mean, Maxime Chanot left. Maxime Morales came back, but then he tore his ACL, and he's going to be out for the year. So it's been a difficult thing. I saw. I was at the EAFC launch. It was a launch party.
Cool, yes. New game.
a couple days ago, and there were a couple of NYCFC players there, and I saw Justin Hack, who is he plays defensive mid, sometimes center back, but he's a homegrown player, so he's one of the academy kids that end up going to the first team, and he scored his first goal this year. He's been with the club about, I think, 3 or 4 seasons. Andres Jason is another homegrown player who scored his first goal this season. He scored, and he's already scored 3, I believe. And I told Justin, I'm like, hey, this is like the year of the homegrown player. NYCFC has not necessarily been known for. They do bring up talent from the academy. We've had players, Joe Scally, who's now at Borussia Mönchengladbach. So Gio Reyna came up with the NYCFC academy. He didn't play with the first team. They never signed him, but he did play with the academy. So there is a lot of potential, and this is why, having City Football Group involved in training and involved in building academies and stuff in the New York area. I think this is why we see what it produces. So that I think that's been kind of my favorite things this season. That the younger players, just through the fact that we've either injuries or we've just desperately needed players to step up, the younger players kind of have and provided big goals in important moments. And NYCFC have just so many draws this season, and that have been so frustrating. And we should be in a better position on the table, but we're in 8th place. We're trying to fight off Inter Miami. We're trying to fight off the Montreal and the Fire, but luckily some of the teams beneath us are worse. So it would be pretty. I think it would be quite the successful story if NYCFC stay in the playoffs. I also think there's a slight. I'm not a Nick Cushing out, who is the coach. I'm not like that, but I think NYCFC making the playoffs allows more time for Nick Cushing, because I don't think, even though this has been a difficult season, I don't put the blame on him. I think the roster was kind of poorly constructed this season. We didn't have a proper striker for months. Just easily 4 or 5 months. We just did not have somebody who we knew could score goals. After losing Tati Castellanos, it's just been a difficult time to adjust. So yeah, right now my favorite player is hopefully making the playoffs. Whoever that is, whoever allows us to do that.
Yeah, it's interesting with Cushing, because he hasn't had a massively long sort of managerial career in the game. But I think obviously he was a product put in place by the City Football Group, which is they're going to make good decisions there. And there is a young up and coming manager in the City Group, Pep something. I can't remember his name, but he's supposed to be good. So maybe you get him next.
Look, we're getting a stadium in 2027, and look, that has been floated out. People have said that may, and I remember a couple years ago, Alexis I think he was doing a stand-up show somewhere, and he walked out of the venue, and he saw Pep like in New York. Like I don't know, he was just standing outside somewhere, I think waiting for someone. And I believe, I don't remember the exact story, but I know Alexis spoke to him and said something, and I think he said like, "Oh, do you like New York?" And he said, "Oh, I love it." And that's it. I've just stuck to that. I'm like, okay, well, Pep when is the contract being signed? Let's get this. But yeah, it would be incredible to see. We had Patrick Vieira as a manager, and that was like a really awesome. I got to meet Patrick Vieira several times, and that was just such a cool experience, and just such a revered player. And it's just like he hasn't found the success in coaching just yet, but I think a lot of players have had a ton of respect for him. So yeah, look, I think NYCFC is going. I'm hoping it becomes not a stepping stone for coaching. I think it especially when we get our stadium. I think it can be a home and a place to really build. And as MLS grows, as the club grows, I think it can be taken a lot more seriously when it comes to even the tree of all the CFG clubs. So I think we have a lot to look forward to.
Absolutely, yeah. I'm sure it's only going to go one way, which is up, which is fantastic. I'm going to finish. Normally, I finish on a wish list for in an MLS context, but for you, I'm going to go for a wish list question in a Cooligans context. Who would you love to have on? Who's the dream guest?
Well, weirdly, we've had a lot of the dream guests already.
Yeah, you've done very, very well. Yeah.
There is. I mean, there aren't too many people. I mean, look, names. This is the main thing. The reason it's tough to answer that question is because I could say a name that is of someone just famous, and it might lead to more views or whatever, but it may not necessarily be the most fun. So that's usually the thing. Yeah. I'm not as deeply obsessed with views as I probably should be. I mean, some people are much more successful.
Healthy, you know?
Some people are much more successful than I am. But it is a thing where like even the name Pep, like how could I interview Pep in a way that is different than how he's normally interviewed and stuff like that? And what side of Pep can we see? Like I've gotten to briefly interview David Beckham. That was like sort of in a setting, kind of like a car wash type thing when he was going from, station to station and interview to interview. Because I didn't really get a sit down kind of like conversation with him. So moments like that where I'm like, I know we could have such a really would you like to see David Beckham on a comedy podcast? That's things like that. So it's almost like it's person, it's the setting, it's like how unique we can make it. But so it's hard to answer. I see. Yeah, you know what I mean? I mean, there isn't. We've been lucky enough to interview a lot of those dream gets and stuff like that. But I'm sure as we, Messi, sure, I would love to that'd be great. I'm gonna say no to that.
I'm gonna send Messi and Taylor Swift your way, and then we're gonna be good.
That's it. Yeah.
That is awesome. Thank you so much for joining me today, Christian. It's been absolutely brilliant to talk to you. I really appreciate it. Can you tell people where they can find the Cooligans, where they can find you online, or any of your stand-up stuff?
At Soccer Cooligans on all social channels and on YouTube, where we're here. We do 2 shows a week. Tons of interviews and the podcast, especially the audio podcast. And you can get the audio feed is where everything is, and you can just search any name, whether it's Rapinoe, whether it's Jack Harrison. We did interview Jack Harrison, so they're all there. So and then for me on Twitter at Chris Polanco and at Christian_Polanco on Instagram, if for comedy stuff and all that. So this has been great, Tom. Thank you so much. I'm always grateful for the British appreciating Major League Soccer. I have good friend the MLS UK show. Those guys are awesome.
Yeah, fantastic.
Love those guys too. So it's always great when you are supporters and not mocking us for calling it soccer. You know what I mean?
No. I think there's a lot of naivety in that from the British side, and I think they don't know what they're missing, to be honest, because the MLS is a fantastic league.
I completely agree, man.
Good stuff. Thanks. All the best.
Cheers.